District Attorney Sandra Doorley, Sheriff Todd Baxter. My name is Chris Chichester. I live in Rochester, New York. I'm an innocent man. This is the Freedom of Information Law. There are 67 in here. I'm going to read every one. And every one will arrive at your office in the next 24 to 48 hours. Because I went to UPS on Park Avenue. And in no particular order, it's going to Paul C. Metzler here. Send me a list of defendants. You know why, Paul C. Metzler? Do I even have to say it? I didn't open it. That's not a list of defendants. That's a joke. And when I open it, I'm going to say, I told you so. That's a joke. Is everybody guilty, Paul C. Metzler? That should be what you should be thinking about. You don't quit anyone. You, Paul C. Metzler, and you, James C. Melly Jr., in that revolting little room without a jury, without a table for a prosecutor, without a table for a defendant, defense attorney, without a witness box for testimony, declare everybody guilty. Do you think you're in a courtroom, Paul C. Metzler? Tell Attorney General Merrick Garland you think you're in a courtroom. Tell United States Attorney for the Western District of New York, Trinity E. Ross, you think you're in a courtroom, you skinhead widow. So, Paul C. Metzler's getting this. Alex Renzi, just like Paul C. Metzler, he knows the prosecutor doesn't talk to court. The prosecutor doesn't even have to be present for him to sentence me to jail. I have due process, Sandra Doorley. I have civil and constitutional rights. What do you think about the fact that I have been in jail 6 times, Sandra Doorley, and 6 times a prosecutor from the Monroe County District Attorney's Office hasn't talked in court? How is that explained, you pathetic diva? And you don't think you have to explain anything to anyone. And that is a reason why you're a pathetic diva. You don't even live in Rochester, in the city you work in. Why is that, Sandra Doorley? Mark Phillips, the Public Defender's Office. Mark, thank you for your representation of me. I'll always be grateful to you and Regina Harper. The reason why I didn't send this to Regina, too, and I was going to send this to Trinity Ross, is because UPS was closing at 4 o'clock, and I was getting kicked out. So I was sitting there, and I was writing what I need to do and using the copy machine, and I couldn't get everything done that I needed to get done. So, but the 2 most important individuals on here are Sandra Doorley, so you're getting this in the next 24 to 48 hours, and Todd Baxter. So every single Freedom of Information Law document I read, you will sign for. And I'm having difficulties with my Gmail and creating other Gmail accounts. And perhaps you may not get this tonight or tomorrow because you need a phone now to create a Gmail account. It's different. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see me read every single Freedom of Information Law tonight or tomorrow. But it arrived at your office, or will arrive at your office. It's coming. It's on the way. And you will refuse because you're corrupt. So, Todd Baxter, tell me how this is a crime. I'm not saying this rhetorically. And I'm not trying to be obnoxious or sarcastic, which I can be. Tell me how this is a crime, you Benito Mussolini skinhead. This is where I used to live in Penfield. Steve Desmond of Brocola Tree and Lawn Care rides his tractor alongside where I used to live at 26 Sanders Farm Drive, because $67,000 sick Shannon Meyer from the sheriff's office told him to. This is how she's trying to concoct a crime for me. I walk outside, I stand right here on this concrete. I say nobody owns that land and walk back into my residence. How is that a crime, Todd Baxter? That's not a crime. That's not a crime anywhere in the state of New York except for Penfield, except for Monroe County. How is this possibly explained, Todd Baxter? This is where you get a pass from this ridiculous media and others that can hold you accountable, where you don't think you have to explain anything. That's what I say when you get a pass. You don't have to explain anything. You don't have to defend your employees, no matter how revolting they are. This is a vile, sick human being that you employ in $67,000 Shannon Meyer, and you, Todd Baxter, perfectly comfortable being around vile, sick human beings. Because you, Todd Baxter, vile and sick. It's not a crime for me to walk outside, stand right here, say nobody owns that land, and walk back in my reds. That's not a crime, Todd K. Baxter. With all the training that a sheriff office employee has to undergo before they get to the first day on the job, this is what this sick, disgusting, revolting hack is doing to me. I'm walking through the parking lot one day. For the 4,000th time, a man named Namraj Shah, who's a 50-year-old man who lives with his 70-year-old mother, begins to scream at me. I say, what's the problem? As I'm walking away, he continues to scream at me, and I give him the official finger of Brooklyn, New York. And there are individuals that I have known in Brooklyn and in the city and on Long Island that would have attacked him, given what he was doing, the way he was behaving. He was so out of control. I'm not trying to exaggerate. I'm not trying to pretend like I have some ridiculous experience, because I have known individuals that would have absolutely attacked him based on, he was at such a state of frenzy, this guy. So anyway, I give him the official finger in Brooklyn, New York. I tell him to fuck off. I kept walking. This took less than 30 seconds. So I arrive home, and I believe it was that night or the next morning. This is when $67,000 revolting sick hack, Shannon Meyer, calls me. And I spoke to her for 60 minutes. And this is the most bizarre, odd, weird, and nauseating conversation I've ever had in my life. She's asking me, Todd Baxter, how long have you lived in Penfield? And this is the first time that when she asked me that question, I took the phone away from my ear and I looked at it. And I was repeatedly taking the phone away from my ear. And she talks like a freak. And I answered that question. And she says to me, do you know Namraj Shah? And I said, no. And why are you asking me if I know this guy? And I explained the facts and circumstances of what happened with him. And I'm telling her the most important fact and the most important circumstance, Todd Baxter, that people walk through this parking lot all day long, Todd Baxter. And on the accusatory instrument for me, as I click on this is from Shannon Meyer. And I responded to this addendum, Todd Baxter, and it is CR 18-0751005. And I have taken this document and responded to every sentence. So it says, on the above dated approximately 1440 HRS, I responded to the above location for the report of a male trespassing. That's the first sentence. And it goes on for another 200 or so words. A male trespassing. Todd Baxter, these are two of my neighbors here. I don't know if you can see them with the glare on the phone, but I'm going to take a picture of, I'm going to make a copy of this. But those are two of my neighbors. If I can hold the phone down there, they'll walk through this parking lot. That's a photograph of two of my neighbors that Namraj Shah sees walk through his parking lot. The two individuals that live next to me at 26 Sandy Farm Drive walk through the parking lot. The elderly woman across the street from me walked through the parking lot. Penfield High School students walked through this parking lot. There was a parade of individuals beginning at 7 a.m. in the morning until midnight that walked through this parking lot. You know why I know that, Todd Baxter? Because I wake up at 7 a.m. because I would go for a run and a bike ride. And immediately I see people walk through the parking lot because they're going to Wegmans and Target and doing other things because it's ordinary and normal. And at midnight, because of where my couch was near a sliding glass door, I could see people walking by me. If I'm watching television and looking straight ahead like I am right now, I could turn my head this way and see somebody walk through the parking lot. So Todd Baxter, this is why she's a revolting, sick psychopath. And you, Todd Baxter, are a revolting, sick psychopath. Because I'm saying to the Shannon Meyer, my phone call with her, people walk through this parking lot all day long, and why are you calling me? So Todd Baxter, upon my arrival, I spoke with V. Shah. How is he a victim? The 1984 of your office, you skinhead and stooge. Your employee, $67,000, Shannon Meyer, has Namraj Shah as a victim in this addendum. That's an accusatory instrument. Shah stated that Chichester was on his property again today. The parking lot is a property, even though he's been informed that he's not allowed to be there. That's another lie. I wasn't informed by anyone, Todd Baxter. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? I click back on, I want to make sure the camera's on. This is fanaticism. And since you, Todd Baxter, are fanaticism, this is what you can embrace. You haven't fired her, right? $67,000 Shannon Meyer. Despite everything I've said about her, I've sent this to you, this accusatory instrument where I took every sentence that I'm reading and responded to it. Confronted Chichester. Shah stated he confronted Chichester while he on walking through the parking lot of the above address. And that's a typographical error. Your employee, when she's concocting this for me, doesn't even understand basic sentence structure and grammar. So I'm going to read that again. Shaw stated that he confronted A. Chichester today while he on walking through the parking lot of the above address, and V. Shaw stated that A. Chichester began to swear at him, told him he didn't care if he called the police and displayed his middle finger at Shaw. I began to swear at him, and fuck you, Todd Baxter, because as I'm walking, my back is turned, and he's screaming at me. That's why. So I turned around and thinking, why is this guy screaming at me? And Chichester began to swear at him, told him he didn't care if he called the police and displayed his middle finger at Shaw. So Shaw further stated that he sent A. Chichester a certified letter on 9/9/2017, that's how long ago this is, stating that he's been not allowed to be on his property. Not allowed to be on his property. Did this psychopath send the same letter to my neighbors here in Penfield High School student? Did every Penfield High School student get a letter from this psychopath 50-year-old Nayrosh Shaw who lives with his 70-year-old mother, Todd Baxter? So, Chichester was reinforced by police that he's not allowed to be on Shaw's property. Reinforced by police. The 1984 again view, I have no idea what that means. What is reinforced by police? This is the corruption of your Shannon Meyer. There's no reinforcement for me. I try not to laugh on here because there's nothing funny about the obliteration of my life by corrupt cops like this Shannon Meyer. I wasn't reinforced by anybody. And what's that mean? I've sent this to your office. Did you read it and call the Shannon Meyer into your office and ask her about everything I've said about her? And the answer is no. Do you know why? Sheriff Todd K. Baxter of Monroe County. Because you're the blue wall of silence. And what do I mean by that? The blue wall of silence is when the corrupt police either ignore or embrace the corrupt acts of their fellow police officers. And that's you, Todd K. Baxter. Because it doesn't matter that this is fanaticism as I continue to read this. I spoke with S. Chichester, and he stated that he never received a map or title of the property and that he was on the property on 4/26/2018 and will continue to walk through 2041 Penfield Road until he is shown a, quote, title that proves that V. Shaw owns the land that he claims he owns. The title is for the land where I would walk my dog. So there's the property that she's referring to, which is the parking lot. And there's the title she's referring to, which is the land, which is right here. Do you understand what I'm saying to you here? There's a parking lot, which my neighbors walk through all day long, and there's a arrest warrant for me. And then there's the property here, which Timothy Murphy, the Monroe County Office of Real Property Tax Service, can't confirm that they own, and they don't have the documentation. Todd Baxter, pay attention, you skinhead stooge, degenerate and fanatic. Even if there is land ownership of this land here, it's not a crime for me to walk outside, stand right here on this concrete, and tell Steve Devson and Brock Tree and Lawn Care no one owns the land and walk back on my residence. That's not a crime. And you sent, there were at least, I think, 6, and it could have been 10, because Shannon Meyer is going to your fellow psychopaths at the sheriff's office saying, I'm trying to arrest this Chris Chichester. You need to come with me. It was ridiculous how many of your psychopaths were at my residence that day. And who was the arresting officer? Because it wasn't Shannon Meyer. It was someone else. And when I say you're psychopaths, Todd Baxter, I mean, you would drive over to my residence and you would park alongside the residence. You'd be outside. Because, Todd Baxter, this is where I used to live. Can you see it? I don't know if you can see it. I'm at the sink, and there he is right outside my window. For what reason? I had been on YouTube repeatedly, and there I am about to do my dishes, and there's your fellow psychopath right outside where I used to live. So, are you watching me, you skinhead stooge and party switcher? Todd Baxter? Are you watching me, Sandra Doorley? The prosecutors talk to court? What arrived today? District Attorney Sandra Doorley. I'm going to show you where your name is. Here. What will arrive in the next 24 to 48 hours, what I sent today, is the Freedom of Information. Well, I'm demanding the names of my prosecutors. If employees at the United States Department of Justice called you, Sandra Doorley, and said to you, disclose the names of the prosecutors for the citizen Christopher Chichester in Rochester, New York, is your answer refusal? Is it? Because I believe it is. Because you're corrupt, Sandra Doorley. How do you get into the office, Sandra Doorley, I'm going to read these Freedom of Information Law documents momentarily. You drive yourself into the office because I call you a pathetic diva for multiple reasons. A diva is an insufferable human being nobody wants to be around, which is you. If you don't even drive yourself into the office, well, that's confirmation of what I already know. It's that you're a diva. So do you have a driver? Do you have a car? Do you never drive yourself into the office, and when you go into work, there's someone in your driveway, an employee, a taxpayer-supported employee of the district attorney's office that takes you to 47 South, hits you, and what's the answer, you pathetic diva? So, the sickness of you coming to my residence, demand my dog. I'm not going to talk about this because I'm a broken record about this, but the question that I was asked, my ex-girlfriend, Laura Riley, we went to Lollipop Farm, Maine side, have you ever been arrested, Chris and Laura? The answer was no. People love their dogs with their heart and souls. I'm nothing special. Come to my residence, demand my little guy. So, this is the Freedom of Information Law. The first one, Todd Baxter, I believe can remove you from office if you refuse to answer, because it's how you spend taxpayer dollars on the most important purchase for every sheriff office in the United States of America. My name is Christopher Chichester. I'm an innocent man. The contract signed by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter to purchase firearms from Monmouth County Sheriff's Office employees to include the name of the firearms contractor, the number of firearms purchased, the total amount of taxpayer dollars expended to purchase firearms. That's the copy. I'm holding this up in red. The reason why I write this in red is that from what I read online, psychopaths like the color red. I'm not exaggerating. That's online. So that was a copy. But since psychopaths like the color red, what's the answer to this, Todd Baxter? This can remove you from office. Do you think that unethical purchasing practices at the sheriff's office, such as for the most important purchase, can remove you from office, Todd Baxter? Is your answer no to that question? Because the answer to that question is yes. Freedom of Information Law. The contract signed by District Attorney Sandra Doorley to purchase 1, an automobile and automobiles, 2, a driver or chauffeur for District Attorney Sandra Doorley, 3, office supplies. Something as innocuous as office supplies can be corruption, depending on what you're buying. Do you have a driver? Sandra Doorley. It's as simple as it can get. You refuse to answer because you're corrupt. The number of employees in the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, arrested for driving while intoxicated. Just like with the previous foil, you refuse to answer because you're corrupt. Since you have been sheriff since January 2018, I'm confident you have been told multiple times while you were in your office or somewhere else in Monroe County or at home that a Monroe County Sheriff Office employee was arrested for driving while intoxicated. So Todd Baxter said, I don't believe in speculation. What's the answer from you? And what I'm going to hear is stone cold silence because you're corrupt. The number of employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, arrested for driving while intoxicated. What's the answer? Perry Duckles. You know the answer because I believe you're the de facto district attorney in Monroe County. Have you, Perry Duckles, been arrested for driving while intoxicated? Have you, Elizabeth Buckley, been arrested for driving while intoxicated? What's the answer? Tell me the answer, and you will refuse because you're corrupt. Freedom of Information Law. The number of employees in the New York State Supreme Court, 99 Exchange Boulevard, Rochester, New York, arrested for driving while intoxicated. When I say the number of employees, I'm only interested in one, and that's Alex Renzi. You're forcing me in to this courtroom for the express purpose of delivering me to jail when you know a prosecutor doesn't have to talk to court, you know there's no jury, you know there's no witness box for testimony, and most important, you know there's no evidence that I've committed a crime. So who is the prosecutor assigned to this 70-year-old fossil? And you refuse to answer because you're corrupt. And the reason why, or a reason I seek the names of my prosecutors, is to begin process to disbar each. I cannot do that and achieve that goal if you're refusing to tell me the names of prosecutors assigned to my court appearances who are in court with taxpayer dollars and whose entire nauseating, sick, corrupt existence is tax dollars. I'm going to get to the foils where I read each one and demand the names of my prosecutors, and you refuse, despite the fact that it's arriving at your office in 24 to 48 hours. You can easily respond and send it to where? 620 Park Avenue, PMB number 361, Rochester, New York, 14604. I'll repeat that again. And on here, I've taken a photo, I've taken a YouTube video of each foil so you can see it. This is dated today, which is December 26th. It's not attached in PDF because I couldn't go to the library and use the PDF converter because the library was closed. Freedom of Information Law, the number of employees at Penfield Court 195 Bad Road, Penfield, New York, arrested for driving while intoxicated. Paul C. Metzler, what's the answer? Given the fact that you're in the vicinity of 70, just like James P. Mully Jr., that's a long life, and anything can happen in a long life. If the answer is I've never been arrested for driving while intoxicated, then that's the answer. $28,000 Paul C. Metzler is in there with 6,000 votes. What a joke. Paul C. Metzler, you allowed this $91,000 fat girl, Leah LaRoque, into my residence with a document that's not a search warrant. It just says search warrant because you typed the words search warrant on it. There's no affidavit. There's no seal. And most importantly, Paul C. Metzler, there's no probable cause. Leah LaRoque, you're copied on this. How did you contact my landlords? Was it my dead landlord, Giuseppe Spano, dead at 47 years old, and I hope he burns in hell? Or was it his father, Antonino Spano? How did you get into my residence, Leah LaRoque? I'm going to ask you this in writing. Well, I'm going to demand you answer. And you know why you'll refuse, Leah LaRoque? It's as simple and basic as Todd Baxter's existence. You're corrupt. So, no probable cause whatsoever for you to look at my Chromebook, place it in your possession, and remove it. And where is it? You better have my Chromebook, you $91,000 fat girl, Leah LaRoque, and mail it to 620 Park Avenue, PMB number 361, Rochester, New York, 14604. And how is that explained to the employees of the United States Department of Justice? And there you are, Leah LaRoque, with my Chromebook in your hand. How many individuals are in my residence? Were you the only one going berserk at 26 Sanders Farm Drive? Or there were multiple Monroe County Sheriff Office employees? This is where there's no accountability, Sheriff Todd Baxter, for your sick, disgusting, revolting, corrupt acts like this $91,000 Leah LaRoque, because she thinks she doesn't have to answer. So send me that document that's not a search warrant, Paul C. Metzler. And Leah LaRoque, I'm going to be in contact with you relentlessly. Your employment should be terminated at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office for the simple reason that you're corrupt. Freedom of Information Law, the documentation signed by $28,000 Paul C. Metzler, that is a quote, search warrant, end quote, to allow $91,000 Leah LaRoque of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office to enter 26 Sanders Farm Drive in Penfield, New York for the confiscation of the Acer Chromebook owned by Christopher Chichester at the residence. It's as simple as it can be. Todd Baxter, how many sick days have you had in calendar year 2022? Answer that question. You refuse because you're corrupt. Freedom of Information Law, the total number of sick days used by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter from January 1, 2022 to December 26, 2022, which is today. You're past 50, so the body changes. Are you picking up the phone and calling in sick 10 times, 15 times, 20 times? Or just like Sandra, you're not even going to the office? Total number of sick days used by District Attorney Sandra Doorley from January 1, 2022 to December 26, 2022. You, Sandra Doorley, unlike any employee at the District Attorney's office, just like Sheriff Todd Baxter at the Sheriff's office, don't have to pick up the phone and call anyone because you're elected by the people. You don't want to go into the office? You want to work from home? That's your choice and your decision. Is your choice and your decision that you work from home? And if you do go into the office and I'm incorrect, how many times have you called your office for a sick day? And this is where there's no accountability. I know exactly what you're thinking. Sandra Doorley, if you're watching me, or any of your employees at the District Attorney's office or any of these hacks, the Sheriff's office, he should be arrested. It's exactly what you're thinking. I'm trying to enrage you. You're already enraged. It's just a matter of activating it. And this is how I do it. I activate your rage and your fanaticism and your corruption with the Freedom of Information Law. Do you have minors on the payroll, Todd Baxter? It's such a simple question to answer, and simplicity like this can remove you from office. If there are 100 minors on the payroll, if there are 50 minors on the payroll, you cannot remain in office. You will have to resign. For more information on it, the number of minors on the public employee payroll of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. A minor is a human being that is 17 years or less. Then there are the minors that are the nepotism minors. Do you have the nepotism minors on your payroll? Corey Brown is the deputy sheriff who's paid $131,000. I don't know anything about Corey Brown except the fact that he's paid $1,000 less than you, Todd Baxter. So, does Corey Brown have children? And are the children of Corey Brown on the payroll? Like Camille Miller at $12,000. And is Camille Miller the daughter of $34,000 Kathleen Miller? And is Kathleen Miller married to $77,000 Andrew Miller? And is $12,000 Camille Miller the daughter of Andrew and Kathleen Miller? And what's the state of nepotism? Corey Brown, I do not have your email, but if you're watching me, because I've been told when I was at the jail, the Monroe County Sheriff Office employees have watched me, and I don't know. But Corey Brown, if you're watching me, are your children on the payroll of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? The answer is no. The answer is no. Do you know of other children or minors, just like Camille Miller, that are on the payroll? How many minors are you aware of, Corey Brown and $131,000, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, that are on the payroll? For any more information, the number of minors on the public employee payroll of the Monroe County Attorney's Office is Attorney Sandra Doorley. What's the answer, Perry Duckles? What's the answer, Michelle Crowley, Director of the Grand Jury? What is it? Existing that stone cold silence to corruption. When I contact New York State Controller Thomas P. DiNapoli in Albany and say to him, I've been demanding this for over and over, just in the last 4 weeks. I think I've sent this 8 or 9 times. I could be wrong. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't want to say I've been sending 8 or 9 times when I could be wrong. I could be incorrect. But it is more than once. And I'm doing it again right now on this December 26th, and you already signed for it. So it's really irrelevant how many times I've done it. I'm telling you now, I demand to know the number of minors on the public employee payroll for the Sheriff's Office, District Attorney's Office, how many minors are related. And you're signing for it. It's arriving. Tell me the answer. For any more information, the documentation signed by District Attorney Sandra Doorley created, quote, conviction integrity unit, end quote, within the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. As I said, tell me the answer to minors. That's the same question he was conviction integrity unit. Where's the documentation? Send it to me and explain why you have to have this contraption. There's only one answer to why you have to have this contraption. Innocent citizens are in jail and prosecutors don't talk to court. There is no answer. That's it. If you disagree with that, Sandra Doorley, for forming this contraption, that's your contraption to police Sandra Doorley, then tell me. Perry Duckles, respond to me. In New York State, there are public meetings laws. I have not been able yet to find online the public meetings law that I can cite as it applies to your conviction integrity unit, if it met in public. This is a public relations vehicle for Sandra Doorley. And if it has not met in public, that's the confirmation that this is a public relations vehicle for Sandra Doorley. How many individuals are on this conviction integrity unit? I'll write separate Freedom of Information law documents where I'm demanding the names of the individuals. I'm demanding how many times I met. I'm demanding the minutes and other things. The minutes of every conviction integrity unit meeting at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. It is so simple. You refuse to comply with even simplicity. This is your podcast called Behind the Badge, a joke. Why do you have to have a podcast? Why aren't you in your office doing your job? You're sitting behind a microphone where you need a producer, where you need someone to ask you questions, which has nothing to do with the job of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, which has nothing to do with violence descending on the city of Rochester, which has nothing to do with violent criminals. You're spending taxpayer dollars for a podcast. You're devoting time and resources for a podcast. Freedom of Information law. The cost to taxpayers for production of the, quote, Behind the Badge with the MCSO, end quote, podcast, where Sheriff Todd K. Baxter declares his intent to be, quote, as transparent as possible with the public, end quote. As transparent as possible with the public is a lie. I'm demanding transparency from you right now, and you refuse to comply with every single document here, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, because you're corrupt. Just like this here. Compensatory time for state employees when I worked in Albany for the majority leader and governor is standard 40-hour work week. Every hour beyond the 41st hour accumulates. So if you work 3 weeks in a row, 60 hours, you have 60 hours of compensatory time. 20 hours, 20 hours, 20 hours. That's the way it works. What happens when an employee arrives at the 41st hour? You refuse to answer because you're fleecing taxpayers, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, and you're corrupt. Does Sheriff Todd K. Baxter allow compensatory time to employees that have work time beyond the standard 40-hour work week that is not, quote, vacation time, end quote, with the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office employees paid? What's the answer? Does this need further clarification? Are you confused? Is your skinhead in confusion about what I just read? Same thing for the District Attorney's Office. Does District Attorney Sandra Doorley allow compensatory time to employees that have worked beyond the standard 40-hour work week that is not vacation time, end quote, quote, unquote, vacation time with the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office employee is paid? This is easier to answer at the District Attorney's Office because of the number of employees. And as far as the number of employees, District Attorney's Office, Sheriff's Office, I'll begin to write Freedom of Information Law documents since January 2018, where I'm demanding your payroll in 6-month periods, and I can compare your payrolls for the raises. You will refuse. And then I'll ask Controller Thomas P. DiNapoli to demand a subject because I believe you're delivering monstrous raises of $20,000, $25,000 to your employees. And that's how I find out. If I have payrolls in 6-month periods since January 2018, it's easy to find out who got a raise. And you want to exist in that craven secrecy. You don't want anybody to know in Monroe County what you're doing with taxpayer dollars because that removes you from office. This can remove you from office. What are your personal finances? It's so simple. I have not been able to determine yet what's the document, what's the law, the state and federal law that compels you to send this to me. There is a law that compels you to send this to me because you have a financial disclosure. I'm not asking you for documentation about your life, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, that doesn't exist. You have a financial disclosure. You have to disclose your finances. So where is it? And you know that this is general language, and that's why you'll refuse. You'll also refuse when I go to the exact part of state or federal law and demand you send it to me because you're corrupt. The personal financial disclosure of Sheriff Todd K. Baxter is as simple as it gets. I'll say this to Thomas P. DiNapoli that I went to 620 Park Avenue, PMB number 361, after I read this, and you signed for it. This is coming. You're signing. You're getting it. I've been on here over the last 18 months where it's just me on YouTube. I send it to your office. You can ignore me. You will sign for it, I believe. I think I checked the box for signature. But UPS can be tracked. UPS is different than the United States Post Office. It's common. This is common. What's the answer about your personal financial disclosure? And I hope you're in fear thinking about it, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, because you're corrupt. Where's your money, Sandra Doorley? It's as simple as it gets. The personal finances of elected officials where I worked in Washington, D.C., in Albany, destroy careers. Personal financial disclosure of District Attorney Sandra Doorley. The ones I've looked at, there is a range for investments and other monies. And what I don't know is if your assistant district attorneys have to provide this. But since they're not elected like you, I'm not that concerned about them right now. But I will be concerned about them in 2 weeks, where I demand if your assistant district attorneys have personal financial disclosure, because they can easily have conflicts of interest without being elected. What's the problem? You're signing for it. It's coming. Respond. Put your financial disclosure, Sandra Doorley, in the mail to my UPS box. Just like Alex Renzi. He's signing for this too. The personal financial disclosure of supervising judge, New York State Supreme Court, 7th Judicial District, that is Alex R. Renzi. Duke of New York, A#1 here, knows the prosecutor doesn't talk in court. He knows there's no jury of 12 to convict me. He knows there's no evidence for me. He knows there's no table for a prosecutor. He knows there's no table for a defense attorney, a public defendant, and me. just like Paul C. Metzler and John P. Lomenzo Jr. in Penfield Court. Yet he's just going to declare me guilty. I'm being convicted on paper by this sick hack that's in the vicinity of 70 years old, just like Paul C. Metzler and John P. Lomenzo Jr. The Court of Appeals requires judges to retire at 70. He's right in that vicinity, but I do not know if state law requires a New York State Supreme Court judge or a town judge like Paul C. Metzler to retire at 70. And if, in fact, you can still be a judge in New York State Supreme Court or town court like a Penfield at beyond 70, that law needs to be changed. He needs to go. And he's the supervising judge. When I say he needs to go, he needs to be forced to resign from office because he's corrupt. Personal financial disclosure, Penfield Town Court Judge Paul C. Metzler. You will refuse. You're only paid $28,000. You need every penny. Where's your money, Paul C. Metzler? And any financial disclosure perhaps will include whatever monies you have from your late husband, Eric Metzler. And Paul C. Metzler, I offer my condolences to you for the death of your husband, Eric Metzler, in 2011 at the age of 51. For your information on the personal financial disclosure, Penfield Town Court Judge James Moy Jr., I'm going to contact you with 1,000 words, 2,000 words, 5,000 words about Jermaine Bemin, Jessica Wagner, District Attorney's Office. You know what I'm talking about, given your age. Can you identify those names immediately? James Moy Jr., Jessica Wagner, District Attorney's Office, Jermaine Bemin. I won't be surprised if you don't have no idea what I'm talking about. Freedom of information, the internal disciplinary records documentation for employees to Monmouth County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter has reprimanded, terminated, discipline, employment to Monmouth County Sheriff's Office. How's this done? This is discipline. What's the process? It's as clear and concise as it can be. Answer Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, me, and you refuse because you're corrupt. The internal disciplinary records documentation for employees to Monmouth County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, that District Attorney Sandra Doorley is reprimanded, terminated, disciplined, employment at the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office. Should you terminate the employment of an assistant district attorney who doesn't talk in court as a citizen is delivered to jail? The answer is yes. The answer from you, Sandra Doorley, is no, because you're corrupt. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Send it to me. A list of every public employee at the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office by 1, length of employment, 2, the day, month, and year the employee is hired. Length of employment is important. You're 20, you retire. I believe 20 years is retirement age. And you keep your employees around for 30 years, 35 years, 40 years, including the old man I saw at the jail, who I believe you know. And you keep him around because you know him. Uniformed employee at the jail, and he is easily right at 70. And he's at the jail because you know you cannot have him in a vehicle and on these violent streets of Rochester, New York. You would protect this old man at your jail. Why is it the retirement age 62? Is it? There's no way this old man is 62. There's no way. I already know you have employees that you pay taxpayer dollars at the jail that are beyond 62. You force employees to retire at 62, Todd Baxter. The name, salary of every public employee at the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. It's as simple as it gets. I'll write this since January 2018 in 6-month periods so I can compare each name and see how you delivered raises. Please be delivering $25,000, $30,000 raises to your employees, Sandra Doorley, because you cannot remain in office if that's the case. List of every public employee at the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office by 1, length of employment years, the day, month, and year the employee is hired. Simplicity here. Send it to me. Follow the law here. Freedom of information. It's as simple as it gets. Freedom of information law. This is the law. I'm telling you to tell me how long your employees have been at the district attorney's office. Because length of employment leads to corruption. You're drenched in corruption at the district attorney's office. That's why you have a conviction integrity unit. And your employees are fleecing taxpayers with overtime, a time and a half, because you're refusing to answer this for 18 months. Total cost of overtime, time and a half, while paid beyond base salaries calculated at the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. How is overtime done? When I contact Controller Thomas P. DiNapoli, I'm going to go into detail, 1,000 words, 1,500 words, 2,000 words about overtime, and a series of questions that you need to be asked. I believe your employees can double their hours work from 40 to 80, and how is that done? Total cost of overtime, time and a half, while paid beyond on base hours calculated at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. What's the answer? It's as simple as it gets. Total number of sick days, the total number of hours employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter have accumulated by 1, the number of sick days, the number of hours. What's not to understand? The number of sick days, total number of hours employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley have accumulated by the total number of sick days, total number of hours. What's not to understand? The number of sick days and total number of hours that supervising Judge Alex Renzi, 7th Judicial District, New York State Supreme Court have accumulated by the number of sick days and number of hours. What's not to understand? Total number of sick days, total number of hours employees at Penfield Court have accumulated by the number of sick days and number of hours. What's not to understand? The cost of taxpayers of Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter expended taxpayer dollars to settle employment-related discrimination lawsuits fair to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This is to determine, to uncover if there's sexual harassment at the Sheriff's Office. If you're asked directly, Sheriff Todd Baxter, is there sexual harassment at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? Do you know what your answer is going to be? It's going to be that incoherent rambling that defines you in that sick way that you refuse to answer questions. Todd Baxter, is this sexual harassment at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? Have you expended taxpayer dollars because you're being sued, because you're in violation of state and federal law for sexual harassment? What's the answer? Cost of taxpayers of Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Doorley expended taxpayer dollars to settle employment-related discrimination lawsuits fair to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Perry Duckles, the de facto district attorney in Monroe County, you know the answer. Have you ever seen a male employee, as you understand the term, sexually harass a female employee? If the answer is yes, what'd you do about it? If the answer is no, then the answer is no, and I'll have to consider if that's a lie. And you can just blow me off and do whatever you want, despite the fact that your entire repulsive existence is tax dollars. If you can eject yourself from corruption and fanaticism, hatred, and disclose the names of my prosecutors, silence that don't talk court, this is where I'm going to go about each, to dispar each. The number of complaints written or filed by defendants about attorneys, employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, with the 4th Judicial Department Attorney Grievance Committee. This is where a disbarment, as far as my research of disbarment in the state of New York in Monroe County begins. 4th Judicial Department Attorney Grievance Committee. I'll go to the 4th Judicial Department Attorney Grievance Committee about you, Sandra Doorley. Do you think that you can't be disbarred, Sandra Doorley? Because you can. And that's because you're unleashing the power of your revolting, sick office upon me, where you know a prosecutor doesn't have to talk in court. And if then you're asked by such a grievance committee, this citizen in Rochester, New York is simply demanding information to you, the information that he is most interested in is the names of prosecutors in your office. And how do you respond to that? It can't be responded to with ethics, integrity, virtue, and morality, because you're morally bankrupt, Sandra Doorley. Freedom of Information Law. What is the basic marshal required for employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter? Again, simplicity. Tell me what it is. How often do they have to qualify? Is it once a year? Because that's a joke. It should be at least quarterly. And then what is the qualifying? Do you take away a weapon? You confiscate a weapon from an employee that can't qualify? I believe the answer is no. I don't believe that a Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee has ever had their weapon confiscated. Not only can it be confiscated because of inability to hit the target with the weapon, it should be confiscated when they're violently attacking innocent citizens, like your employee did to me at Wegmans, whose name I don't know, and like Siemens did to me at the Penfield Public Library. A Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee that violently attacks a citizen in Monroe County, unprovoked, where that citizen's just going about a day, should have that weapon stripped. This is the freak. He's a freak because he's paid no money. Language requires precision. An employee in the sheriff's office that goes into the office and there's nothing, he is paid. $0 is a freak, and that's you, Michael Riley. You, Michael Riley, paid private money for the campaign accounts of Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, and write you directly about that. But right now, Freedom of Information Law. Today in year, Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter rehired Michael Riley after his 20-year career ended on January 1, 2018 and send to the email and address listed below the documentation signed by Sheriff Baxter to rehire Radler. If in fact I received such documentation, because you had to bring him out of retirement and sign a piece of paper. He doesn't just show up at the office and there's no documentation without your signature. Your signature on documentation to hire Radler is you and your admission, Todd Baxter, that he's at the sheriff's office at $0. A $0 employee. How many sheriff's offices in the 62 counties of the state of New York have a $0 freak like Michael Radler? I believe he's the only one. Because you, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, are also a freak. And this is why. A reason why. This is the driving force reason why you, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter of Monroe County, are a freak that I have to sit here and read this insane language. The cost of a surveillance device purchased with taxpayer dollars by Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter and affixed to a building in 2025 Penfield Road to monitor Christopher Child, 26 Sanders Farm Drive, walks through the parking lot next to the building, and that's the lunatic French. I'm going to hold this up. I don't know if you can see it, but that's it. And if you can't see it, the picture's too dark, then you can walk down 2025 Penfield Road, and you can look at it. Elliot Roth, who works at that building at 2025 Penfield Road. Is that your private technology that Psychopaths Incorporated? Fix it for me. Now, here it is. That's it. I don't know if you can see it with the glare. I try to hold my phone a certain way because I check it, but that's it. I've showed it over and over and over. And Regina Harper showed me the images. So Todd Baxter. Did you expend taxpayer dollars for it? Or is it private technology? And what's the answer? You refuse to answer because you're corrupt. And you're corrupt because of the next photo I'm going to show that arrived at your offices, that will arrive at your office in the next 24 to 48 hours via United Parcel Service. I believe that no sheriff office in the United States of America has done what you have done with this Freedom of Information Law. You stand alone in buffoonery. This is a picture of buffoonery. The cost for a photography session to photograph 10 Monroe County Sheriff Office employees underwater in a pool approved by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. I asked you what the cost is. Your response to me is a private event. I don't care. Is this tax dollars? These are your employees right here. I want to make sure I'm holding it up, not upside down with the American flag in the background. Not only is the photographer involved in this, it has to be posed and set up because of the flag. So Todd Baxter, I don't give a shit that this is a private event. Is this taxpayer dollars? When I contact Controller Thomas P. Napoli, I'll say to him, I have been demanding from the Sheriff of Monroe County for 18 months if this is tax dollars he expended for this photograph, and he's refusing. Then if Thomas P. Napoli contacts you and demands that you state the amount in taxpayer dollars, are you going to refuse? And the answer is yes, because you're not accountable to anyone or anything, and you do whatever the hell you want to do. Sheriff Todd K. Baxter doesn't know if he's a Republican or Democrat. And doing whatever the hell you want to do is your 10 employees underwater in a pool. Doing whatever you want to do is Ryan Fisher 1,000 plus miles away in Atlanta, Georgia. And you refuse to tell me the cost of his trip. So please refuse again, even though it's arriving in 24 to 48 hours. Hotel room, plane ticket, the cost for the care and feeding of his German Shepherd Lola. What's the answer, you buffoon, stooge, and skinhead? Freedom of Information Law. The cost for a hotel and plane ticket for my Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher to attend the Super Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia on February 3rd, 2019. You're tweeting about it as we get ready to watch Super Bowl. We're grateful to the men and women signed to keep fans and players safe in Atlanta. That's a lie. Ryan Fisher's not keeping fans and players safe in Atlanta, including MCSO's Deputy Ryan Fisher and K9 Lola. Deputy Fisher sent this photo from Atlanta, exclamation point. He's going up to somebody in Atlanta saying, take my picture while I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia, in the Deep South, so I can send it back to Rochester, New York, so you could put it online? This is corruption. I have ridiculed this and laughed at this before. I'm not going to do that now because it's corruption, and nobody should ever laugh at corruption. And when I ridicule it, I'm trying to enrage you. This is corruption. This is a junket. That specifically is why it's corruption. There's no reason for him ever to be out of Monroe County and the state of New York. It's one thing to be out of Monroe County when you're still in New York. He left the entire state of New York to fly to Georgia. When I was in the 101st Airborne Division, I was introduced to the South. And there are many things about the South and Kentucky that I love, in Tennessee that I love. I love Nashville. It really is terrific. But it is different. And there are things that are alarming in the way they behave. And this is a long time ago, and I was recently there. in the South. And they behave in different ways than New Yorkers. People in Georgia and Alabama and Florida behave in different ways. And here he is in the state of racism and segregation, where there are still parts of Georgia that are completely alienated from the United States of America because of the way they think about race. And there he is in Atlanta, Georgia, an employee. Here's the photo where he's taking it. That's Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That's his dog. That's disgrace. And you go into the media. If you're going to go on a junket, don't tell anybody that you went on a junket. Here he is. Protect and serve. Buying a badge for the dog. And just so you need reminding, this is the state of New York where Ryan Fisher, your employee, you skinhead stooge, you criminal party switcher, should always be. That's the flag of the state of New York. And he's down in Georgia where this was the flag until 2003. This is not the flag now. But until 2003, they still had the stars and bars, these rednecks. Didn't even change this thing until 20 years ago. That's how alienated they are. Alienated is the perfect word for them. So, Freedom of Information Law. Documentation of voucher or other documentation signed by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter to purchase an airline ticket and hotel room for Monroe County Sheriff Office employee Ryan Fisher to travel to Atlanta, Georgia for the Super Bowl on February 3rd, 2019. When I say that there are things that can remove him from office, if he's going to Atlanta, Georgia, and I, of course, know about it because I'm demanding information that I just demanded, and you refuse, you're sending your other employees on these junkets, just like Saratoga Springs. Todd Baxter, how many employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office have been out of Monroe County and they're doing things at conferences, for example, disconnected from the job of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office was? How many have been out of New York State like Ryan Fisher? What's the answer? Freedom of Information Law. The cost for the care and feeding of Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher's German Shepherd Lola during his trip to Atlanta, Georgia, February 3rd, 2019. Was it $50? Was it $100? Was it $150? You gave him a budget to be in Atlanta, Georgia, and it included the care and feeding of his dog. Because he's buying dog food for his German Shepherd Lola, Ryan Fisher, Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee in Atlanta, Georgia. You employees are grossly out of shape. 20, 30, 40 pounds overweight. They couldn't even run a 5K in 30 minutes, which is easy to do. Your employees couldn't do 40 push-ups in 2 minutes. Your employees couldn't do 40 sit-ups in 2 minutes. Your employees could not swim in water for 10 minutes. Freedom of Information Law. What are the physical training standards and requirements at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, and if there's a standard requirement, does it include running, push-ups, sit-ups? I'd like to see you, Todd Baxter, if somebody said to you, do 40 push-ups if you could do it. I'd like to see if somebody said to you, Sheriff Todd Baxter, do 40 sit-ups if you could do it. Because the answer is no. Do you know why, Todd Baxter? Because you're overweight. There's violence at Monroe County Jail. What's the state of violence at the jail? There's a commission on correction in Albany that I'll contact about violence at your jail, and I'll tell the commission you're refusing to answer this Freedom of Information Law. The number of criminal actions where an inmate appeared in court for a criminal charge where the criminal act or charge occurred at Monroe County Jail from January 2022 to December 26, 2022. If you have zero control over your jail, this is the certification of zero control over your jail. If there are the violent criminals in there or nonviolent and they're committing crimes to jail, and then they have court appearances because of crimes to jail, what's the answer, Todd Baxter? You refuse because you're corrupt. Just like I don't know if I have an arresting officer as an innocent man. I have never committed a crime. And if I had an arresting officer, when I'm attacked at Wegmans with your 5 vehicles and your 10 plus employees, including your female employee with the Marine style haircut and tattoos, then that arresting officer is accountable for facts and circumstances of the arrest when one of your fellow psychopaths attacks an innocent citizen. Freedom of Information Law. Does Sheriff Todd K. Baxter assign an arresting officer for every arrest for the accountability of facts and circumstances of the arrest? The answer is no, and why? Because you're the blue wall of silence. Again, about your jail, the Lord of the Flies, that is the Monroe County Jail, Todd K. Baxter. The name and charge of every inmate of Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter's Monroe County Jail from January 1, 2018 to December 26, 2022. Separate your nonviolent inmates from the violent inmates and figure out what that gray area is. Keep them separate. You will have a riot at your jail that will be in the media. Do you, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, hire employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office based on race or gender? It's as simple as it gets. Tell me what the answer is. Do you district with freedom of information law? Do you district attorney Sandra Doorley hire employees of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office based on race or gender? It's as simple as it gets. Tell me what the answer is. And give me these names. Tell me the names of my prosecutors. Silence, you disgusting, sick, repulsive Sandra Doorley. Freedom of information law. Documentation for the case for Christopher Charges for John P. Lorenzo Jr. in Pendleton Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? Total silence as I'm delivered to jail as an innocent man. Documentation for the case for Christopher Charges for Paul C. Metzer in Pendleton Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? Total silence as I'm delivered to jail as an innocent man. Documentation for the case for Christopher Chichester in New York State Supreme Court before Alex R. Renzi. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? Total silence as I'm delivered to jail as an innocent man. Everybody's guilty, Paul C. Metzer, right? This is not a list of defendants. This is a joke. I will open this. Everybody's guilty. How do you respond if, in fact, everybody's guilty, Paul C. Metzer? How's that explained to the United States Department of Justice? You as one person sitting in there, will you know a prosecutor doesn't have to talk in court? Certainly no jury, no witness box for testimony. Do you, Paul C. Metzer, when you're sitting there, when you look down, know that there's no table for a prosecutor to sit at, there's no table for a defense attorney, it's only you as one person determining guilt or innocence? You're the last person of 36,000 in Penfield, New York, that determined guilt or innocence for anyone. So, list of defendants in Pendleton Court for Paul C. Metzer. A list of defendants in Pendleton Court for James Renzi Jr. A list of defendants in Pendleton Court for John P. Lorenzo Jr. I know he's retired. Send it to me. Duke of New York, gate number 1 here. He's going to refuse to, just like Paul C. Metzer and James Renzi Jr. A list of defendants in the New York State Supreme Court for Supervising Judge Alex R. Renzi and his $208,000 salary. You're forcing me in there. You're disgusting, sick cretins at that district attorney's office. No, you can force me in there where they don't have to talk. I say they because there were 2 females behind me. I do not know if they're my prosecutors silent. So what's the answer, Sandra? Do I have multiple prosecutors before Alex Renzi or not? The, quote, defective documents, end quote, cited by John P. Lorenzo Jr., Democrat and Chronicle newspaper about the case of Dan Lawless III. As of my 57 minutes, if I could talk about that, but you know what I'm talking about, Paul. So that's what send it to me. Travel here. This can remove you from office. If you're sending your employees out of Monroe County and out of New York State, and the price tag is your indictment that you're fleecing taxpayers. The cost of taxpayers will all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees of Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd Baxter. This can remove you from office, you pathetic diva. If you're fleecing taxpayers who travel out of Monroe County and out of New York State. The cost of taxpayers will all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Do you go to conferences, Paul C. Metzer and James Renzi Jr.? What's the answer? That's what I'm attempting to find out. How do you explain yourself? You're out of Penfield and away from Pendleton Court, and you're in Albany at a conference, Paul C. Metzer, and you're in Albany at a conference, James Renzi Jr., or you're in Washington, D.C. at a conference. The cost of taxpayers will all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees of Pendleton Court, Paul C. Metzer, James Renzi Jr., and John P. Lorenzo Jr. The cost of taxpayers will all travel out of Monroe County by supervising Judge, New York State Supreme Court, Alex R. Renzi. He will refuse. You know why? Because he's corrupt. What are you doing in Watkins Glen? You skinhead stooge and party switcher Todd K. Baxter? How is this explained to Controller Thomas P. DiNapoli? What was the cost of the trip? It's so simple to answer as you're wallowing in corruption. And since you're wallowing in corruption, you refuse. The cost of the trip to Watkins Glen, New York by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Did the Monroe County Sheriff's Office spend tax dollars for 1 hotel, 2 a plane ticket, 3 per diem? How many of your groupies, your flunkies, your Kool-Aid drinkers did you bring with you? Because you didn't go by yourself. Total number of employees that escorted Sheriff Todd K. Baxter on his trip to Watkins Glen, New York. Freedom of information law. The cost of taxpayers for District Attorney Sandra Doorley attended in Saratoga Springs, New York District Attorneys Association of State of New York Summer Conference. Is the answer yes, Sandra Doorley, you attended this summer conference? Is the answer no? Yes or no? It's that simple. The cost of taxpayers in Saratoga Springs, New York, if Sheriff Todd K. Baxter approved the expenditure of tax dollars to attend the Undersheriff's training conference at the Gideon Putnam Hotel in Saratoga Springs. The Undersheriff is Corey Brown. was Under Sheriff Corey Brown at a $131,000 in Saratoga Springs, New York for the Under Sheriff Training Conference, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter? Yes or no? So, that's it. You got every one. It's on its way. Every single one I read, you also received on December 22nd. Every Freedom of Information Law document I read there on this December 26th, you received. And you've been receiving documents from me over and over and over. I keep adding to the number, but I'd say about 80% of them I sent to you. Registered mail, return receipt, and this you're getting at UPS, so I'm going to repeat this again. Corruption requires repetition. Everything I just read on this Google product, I don't know if you watch me, I'll never know. That is YouTube. Will arrive to Paul C. Metzer via UPS. Will arrive to Alex Renzi via UPS. Will arrive to Mark Phillips, Public Defender, via UPS. Will arrive to Sandra Doorley via UPS. Will arrive to Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, UPS. And you refuse to comply. When I go to Park Avenue, I have to say this again for you with Psychopaths Incorporated, because there's going to be nothing in there. And I've sent this to you on November 28th. You got it on November 28th. I sent it to you on December 18th. Everything I read, about 90%, I should say, I sent it on November 28th and December 18th. Christopher Chichester, 620 Park Avenue, PMB, number 361, Rochester, New York. I'm in jail 6 times because I didn't have the money. And I have been defended with ethics, integrity, and honor by Mark Phelps and Regina Harper. If I had money, if I was comfortable with money, making $200,000 a year, I would not have been in jail for 5 seconds, because I would have had the resources to prevent that from happening to me, despite the fact that I have been defended with honor, integrity, and character. And it doesn't matter what Mark Phillips or Regina Harper say, because corruption cannot be convinced of innocence. My name is Christopher Chichester. I'm an innocent man.